Okay, so I'm going to do this video real quick because I was going to post this to Facebook, but I kind of changed my mind at the last second. I might still post it, but I want to document it somewhere else first before I post it, because I've been doing some contemplation and stuff and thinking, postulating, and formulating. And one of my little brothers came over earlier today who likes to talk about creation theory and stuff like that. I spend most of my time studying creation. I've read a lot of other people's works, studied a lot of other people's works, studied a lot of other people's theories and concepts and stuff like that. And on a personal level, I recognize myself as a type of authority on the subject because I've delved that deep into it all to find out the information for myself, for my own growth and enrichment, and mainly because I understand creation in a way that's different, obviously different from most other people that I know, interact with, or come into contact with. So I started looking at all of the theories about creation and stuff like that. And with the understanding that I have, all of the ones that I've read are actually correct. But they're not correct individually, which I don't know why we try to separate and fractionate stuff in the wrong ways whenever the right way is right in front of us. So we were talking earlier today about unified field theory a little bit, and after taking some of the finer points and breaking them down into layman's terms, I came up with an easy way of explaining some things like our relationship to the unified field theory, but it's really the relationship of everything that exists in creation. It's everything's relationship to the unified field theory, whether it's perceived to move or not. And the evidence, like looking at all of the evidence, the only reason I'm even sharing this way is because overwhelmingly all of the supporting evidence together screams the same message. And it's changed the way that I see reality around us and nature around us, and the way even that I see our universe and numbers and colors and everything, because I can see things the way that my eyes perceive them, but at the very same time my brain perceives them as different resonant frequencies that have coalesced or come together within the unified field in order to create this perception of reality that our five senses of our bodies take in, process, and then color our world for us so that we can interact with it. But one of the finer points that I was explaining to my brother today is, excuse me, the atoms of what we know as the unified field in unified field theory literally wear us and other things, but we're talking about humans since we have to start at square one with perspective here. The atoms in the unified field literally wear us as our conscious resonant frequencies. Our conscious resonant frequencies traverse what I call the U atom C. Now, this is very, very easy to picture what I just described, because if you take a look at your flat screen TV, okay, and even though it's two-dimensional from our perspective, that screen that you're looking at, if you think of all the pixels that are in it as atoms that are stationary and don't move, and then when the TV is on, and the way that colors, images, and pictures and everything, motion fluctuate on the screen from place to place, that is the exact concept behind a U atom C. It's a joined solid state type of piece of existence, we're going to call it. We're not going to call it matter in this instance because we're talking about something that's a precursor to matter, but it is very much like a computer of some sort in the way that it functions. And it's a joined piece that's like joined circuitry that's able to transmit data all the way across the field. And that's like a TV screen, like your LCD screen. The whole screen can be black and it's turned on and live. It can be all white. It can be all rainbow colors. And of course, we know that we watch motion pictures on it all the time. So that's the concept of what a U atom C is, except three-dimensional. And what the U atom C actually is something that mimics an atom. So as far as we can surmise, it's something that would be a sphere in shape, or maybe even a little bit oblong. Excuse me again. Regardless, the U atom C that we are a part of is able to be defined as an atom that you can see other dimensions inside of, or see other dimensions through. There's going to be a multitude of these things, but the one thing that's going to be different about them all, because they're all going to have the exact same composition, the only thing that's going to be different about them is their size. Like the atoms that make our dimension of our reality are not the atoms. They are the atoms, but they're not the same size or in the same perspective as the atoms that we recognize as making up our dimension. But they're going to have the exact same energy balance and composition and stuff like that whenever they're analyzed from the same perspective. So what that basically means is our own universe that we understand ourselves as being a part of, if we were some super colossal universal giant compared to our universe, but we were still a human being, and in this realm of super giant universal sized colossal humans, we still made things like tunneling electron microscopes and stuff like that, then we would be able to look inside an atom, which would be, from the perspective I'm talking from now, for us, the atom we'd be looking into would be our universe. But the bigger version of ourself would just be looking at it as an atom on a tray that they have on a slide underneath a microscope. And the funny thing about the way that all of these different theories tie together is the unified field theory still works, even applying this concept to it and applying other things. Like, what is that term? I believe it's... I can't remember what the AI said the word was for the definition, but basically it's a concept where, and I had proposed this to the AI when it told me what the name of the concept was. If I was to sit with a tunneling electron microscope and look into an atom, that as long as the microscope had the capacity, I could continue tunneling into that one atom again until I could find our universe and our galaxy, and then I could find the planet Earth, and then in that smaller dimension of existence, but it would still be regulated by the same physics like here, on that little Earth that I'd be looking at using GPS coordinates, I could find where I'm located at here on this planet and view myself looking through the microscope at myself. In a later video, whenever the name comes back to me, I'll reiterate this particular point and bring up that that's what the subject or the topic was that I was talking about again. But the all of this stuff makes all of the theories put together make sense. And this U atom C is something that is going to be uniform all the way throughout, but whenever it gets to a size that is large enough to embody all of these, like our existence, okay? Outside of our existence and everything that we know of as the known universe is going to be an area that by us is perceived as empty space, just like in an atom, how the area in the electron cloud at a point was considered to kind of be empty space at a point before we discovered, oh no, there's a nucleus, and we say that there's electrons floating around it in an electron cloud, but it still has a shell. Anything that has the signature of an atom is going to have the same signature, and it's going to have radiations that come from it. But because an atom is a stable version of all of those energy combinations, the radiations are minuscule, and that's what makes it stable versus something that's profusely radiating or like oxidizing or something like that at like a high rate. So by definition, this U atom C that we are a part of is basically a supercomputer, but it's also who a lot of us refer to as God. But all of creation is doing what this God has always done, and it's just causing the processes to get ever more dense as time transpires. So the holographic nature of the universe proves that whatever God really is one entity that throughout countless dimensions of perspective creates different planes of existence that are then layered to create multiple types of realities, including human beings. We are multiple types of layered planes layered together in all kinds of different sequences and stuff to create our bodies. Believe that. It's a fact. When I was a kid, I think it was the Smithsonian Institute did an experiment where a person donated their body to science, and they sliced the body up into micro slices so that each slice could be studied. It's very obvious that we're layered realities put together and creates a human being, just like when we take different components and we make a computer or a TV or a table, the wood, and we slap a coat of primer and paint on it, like everything has layers to it to create what we perceive as something that's usable or perfect or good or something that we can judge. It's just reality. It doesn't even really matter who agrees with that or not. They're facts of everyday life. It's facts. It's what it is. It's what exists. So yeah, the holographic nature of the universe proves that God is one entity, and we are all extensions of that entity throughout countless dimensions of perspective. Every single dimension is a perspective of some sort, and perspectives in themselves are not something that are simple. They're always complex. And these different dimensions of perspectives create different planes of existence that are then layered together to create multiple types of realities, just like each different person of different layered existences and perspectives creates people with different realities in their minds and different perspectives in their minds, and creates different realities for each of those people. And then the primary life energy of creation, which is in itself consciousness, which is a soup of energies. Remember that. It's not just one simple little thing still. It's very complex in itself. But when it has been made into a perfect unified unit, that life energy of God is able to look through each and every perspective created. The same way that water flows into all places whenever you pour it into a vessel. the way that water flows into all places and at the same time lives. Water is alive, and every unit, every drop of that water inside of that vessel contains life inside of it. We know this to be true. You go take a sample of water from your tap, you go to the lake, to your pond, to your neighbor's house to get some water from your toilet, take it to a lab and have them sample it. Every single sample of water that they test for you is going to show something alive in it, something moving around, something doing stuff. And if it stays long enough, usually it'll culture and cultivate something of its own unless it dries out, you know? But water has life in it. Um, Me growing up in church, I know things from the Bible, like how the Spirit of God is commonly referenced as water. So, in this universe, if you imagine our universe being like a giant vase, and the unified field theory being all the atoms that occupy that space, then our consciousnesses and our resonant frequencies that make up our individual perceptions of things would be the characters moving across the TV screen that we're watching as we're viewing the motion picture that we're enjoying for our entertainment. So this existence that we are a part of has been manifested by something that was a precursor to us, and something is watching the program. And it's not anything scary, because the thing that's watching the program is us. But the thing that's watching the program that's us is God, and we're all extensions of God, like appendages, in order to fulfill the goal of what creation's purpose is, which God's purpose for creating things was for God, the one thing that was conscious initially, to experience itself in as many ways as possible. And by doing that, gave life to many, many others. If you think you have consciousness in your head, then I'm talking about you. And even things that you may not perceive as having a consciousness. But definitely, if you understand atoms and creation theory and science, we know that every atom is alive, has life, has a frequency, has a will even, the deeper that you dive into science. And that's the reason that has been the reason to perpetuate continued growth. So what that literally means is, like, at a point, like when the Bible says things like there's nothing new under the sun, I know that that's referencing things like the fact that before you existed as a solid body, you existed as a not solid body. Now, a lot of people will call your not solid body your soul or your spirit. But the fact still remains that the dimension where a soul or a spirit first existed and lived its whole life, that whole dimension had to turn a full revolution of a life cycle for a dimension in order for it to create and birth a new, denser version of itself. But it's interesting how when something becomes denser, it's lent to from multiple angles. A table in your house collects dust. The dust is not only on the top surface of the table, it's on the side, it's on the bottoms, it's on the legs, it's on every single surface of it. So, like a rock out in space, if you start with one speck of dust initially before it's a rock, well, guess what? On a microscopic level, that speck of dust, what's a speck of dust to us, is a rock. On a microscopic level to something else that is a microscopic being that would traverse that rock. But regardless of whether we see it as a rock at first or not, when we perceive it as just dust, and dust comes together and compacts itself, eventually it becomes solid enough under its own weight, under its own mass, under its own density, because the weight of what is on the outer layers is compressing what's on the inner layers. If the essence of whatever is on the inner layers is able to traverse the medium of the denser layers freely, that would be your definition of a soul or a spirit in your own body. So it makes 100% perfect sense to me that if there's nothing new under the sun, and the things that I just said and stated are actual facts that are and are proven, I don't even have to prove them. They've already been proven. All the data is out there. Regardless of the fact that people try to divide it up into different things, does not disprove the fact that all the data is out there. So that means that this life that we live was another dimension before that was a lighter density than the density that we're accustomed to now. But everything that we do in these lives, we've done before. When we talk about reincarnation, there's multiple ways to be reincarnated. Because whenever you go to the realm of creation before being manifested again as a physical being, or if you want to call it a carnal being, or an atomic being, or however you perceive reality, the reality that you can interact with, that you wake up to every day. Okay, um, we've done all of this stuff before in a lighter state of existence. Those of us who don't break free of other entities that are a part of creation, like karma and karmic cycles and stuff like that, don't ever open up our perspectives enough to be able to see the light around us and see that there's other options whenever we pass from this plane of existence into that realm. But it's interesting that people say that they see light when they die and stuff like that. And I can vouch for that. I've died before and I've seen the light. Before that ever happened to me, I talked about a place called the Light Veil Realm. And I wrote about it in a book that never got published because it takes money to publish stuff. And I don't know. I thought it would be easier to get published, but they're not just going around publishing everybody's stuff these days. But I was describing a dream that I had where the dream took me back in time to traverse the creation of the universe. And before any kind of atoms ever existed or anything like that, there's a whole existence of things that are just like what we would call light, emotions, resonance, like the life energy of the universe that is the consciousness, that is like the breath that makes everything alive. In this dream, it was almost like just a curtain of light. A curtain of light that, as the beams and the rays got farther and farther from their original source, then they were able to dissipate into dust. And I guess they pick up so much stuff along the way while they're traveling that that's what caused them to seem to change state into dust particles. But the dust particles pushed so far away from this entity that eventually they settled somewhere in the center and began to coalesce into more denser things. Which it showed me, just like in all the videos of quantum mechanics and string theories and universe theory and creation theory that we have, where they show nebulas and stuff like that. Like, nebulas are dust, space dust, the same exact stuff that we are made out of, the same exact stuff that our planet is made out of, our cell phones are made out of. You know, like, it's a fact that NASA and NASA scientists really, really hope that certain asteroids will come close enough to us or else crash enough of a small enough piece into the earth for us to harvest to use, because some minerals and elements in our universe are that rare but are that useful that it makes them that much more valuable than things that are much more readily available here, because they increase the threshold of our technology by introducing other properties that we didn't have a medium for before. So it's interesting to think that everything that's happening inside of an atom is what's happening in our universe. But that's the reality of things. A universe is going to be a giant atom, and it's going to be closely compacted together with other things that are similar to it, that of a similar resonance, and they're able to group together. So, anyways, that's all for my little rendition tonight. Thanks, guys.